What is a useful skill everyone should learn? How to listen. A lot of people currently tend to lack the ability to actually listen. It's not about shouting points at each other. It's about shutting up and actually listening to what the other person is saying. Active listening. Yes and yes. Especially in arguments. Learning to understand the other person instead of being right. It will help effectively argue your own perspective better if you understand why and person thinks what they do. I have too many family members who argue without even listening. I try to start those arguments by active listening to myself. Why am I so upset? That usually helps me explain to the other person what I'm feeling rather than just blaming them first. It seems to help land the point on a soft conversation rather than a hard argument of blame. The difference between your and your. There. I can see you're passionate about this. Irregardless. Don't let it get you down. Geez, that hurt to write. Sorry to everyone reading it. I should have seen this reply a mile away. How to cook. It always shocks me when someone 18 plus can't make basic food. My mom had to teach my 20-year-old brother how to make a grilled cheese. Then today I had to show him how to separate an egg. I'm 22 and just recently learned to separate an egg. I've just never come across the need to before, I guess. But a grilled cheese? Come on. I can make eggs but not grilled cheese equals. How to sew. It really comes in handy so often. Is it hard to learn the basics? Absolutely not. At least sewing with a machine. Learning where to put the thread is the hardest part. The rest is mostly just being able to think and having a little bit of imagination. But the more complicated the things are that you want to sew, the more experience you need. For example, pillows are super easy. Anyone can do that. A dress on the other hand needs a little bit more practice. Sewing by hand is, at least in my opinion, much harder. I still suck at it, and I made most of my wardrobe myself. Really? I'm the opposite. I always prefer small fixes by hand, but I have been taught how to sew on machine. If I had to actually make something from fabric, I would absolutely want to use a machine though. I took home economics in high school. I was the only boy in the class, but I made the coolest brown fabric and denim apron you've ever seen. Tying a proper knot. Learn and practice a few different ones that have different uses. YouTube is filled with lessons. You'll amaze your friends, or even yourself. It's surprisingly easy to tie a hangman's noose, for example. I've impressed many people this way. I only know one knot, the bowline. It's almost all you need. Figure 8. Belay on. Learn to identify scam messages. No, your computer is not infected with flashing multicolor viruses. No, hot singles are not waiting to meet you. No, you didn't win a contest you didn't enter. No, Nigerian princes are not sharing their fortunes. No, the IRS is not calling you to ask for your personal info or for gift cards. Also, no mom or dad, we won't ask you for a lot of money just minutes after we got a different number. No, hot singles are not waiting to meet you. It crushed my hopes, Perhaps you are the hot single in your area. How to self-regulate their emotional state through grounding exercises. Edit. Random Google search gave this therapistaid.com link. Not just for trauma, but for any time when there is physiological hyperarousal. Also help with mild dissociation and panic attacks. Another good thing to learn is emotional literacy. Developing a better vocabulary of the emotional state you're in and get better at recognizing it. I don't think I can trust grounding techniques from the Rapist Aid site. They're helping future rapists prepare to console their victim after it's over. What a noble cause. Putting the censure back into non-consensual. Basic car care. Everyone should be able to change their own oil and rotate their tires, at a minimum. Both are super simple and require only a few tools but can save you a lot of money. I disagree. Sure, it's a useful skill, but changing oil isn't the same as it was 30 years ago. For one, most cars require specialized oil and filters that can run you over $100. Then you need either an industrial jack, or a set of ramps and tire chucks. Not to mention your multi-tool and monkey wrench may or may not be sufficient. Finally, there's the disposal. Meanwhile, For 20 bucks plus parts and an hour you can get your local shop to do it for you. Heck, there's a guy in my town who will come to your house and do it for you. Lease cars can get it for free from your dealer. Rotating tires is cheaper, but a massive pain in the butt. Again, easier to just find a shop with a lift. But one thing everyone should know is how to change tires on your own car. I've owned a variety of cars and currently own a 2016 Mazda CX-5 and a 2014 Ford Escape. Never needed anything special. I can get synthetic oil and a filter for $35. 10 minutes of my time and it's all done. Shops near me, Jiffy Lube, auto shops, etc. charge at least $75 for a synthetic oil change. I do have ramps and I'll grant you those cost a few bucks. But over the life of a car, you make up the savings. Only other tools I need is the socket wrench for the oil pan plug and the wrench for the oil filter. Also, where I am, any auto parts store, AutoZone, O'Reilly, etc. recycles the oil for free. Honestly, last time I had a car, I was happy to pay $30 to the service station near my house for an oil change. It wasn't worth my time. And I was happy to support the local business. There's something to be said for understanding how cars work, so you don't get ripped off. But that's not the same as being able to do the work yourself. First aid and CPR should be a school requirement with certification before kids turn 15. I agree, but will say I had CPR when I was 15 and a lot has changed since then. I think I'd rather get outdated CPR than no CPR. I was going to say this, but I want to add on that you should learn some basic pharmacology. Learn what medications more or less do and what OTC meds are best for which situations. And what drug mixes to avoid, etc. like alcohol and Tylenol. Learn to swim. Learn to swim. Learn to swim. Learn to swim. Learn on my freshman high. Learn to float. Backstroke. The butterfly. Swim correctly and come up for air the correct way. I say learn how to float really good, so you can rest. And when taking in some water, you don't panic. You just choke for your air and don't panic. Get your bearings back, and understand how a riptide works. And never swim alone. I remember as a little kid my mom took me to a swimming lesson over the summer once. When the instructor said we were going to learn how to float, I thought to myself, how the hell do you learn how to float? Sure enough, she then taught us how to float. I remember laying there looking up at the sky in awe of the witchcraft had just been shown. Learn how to float. Google.com link and Q equals learn plus how plus to plus float valps equals TPJAX is XDL5RCT ab 97 ZUP 29. Yes, it's great learning a skill. That might save your life on day. Critical thinking. We could use more of that in this day and age. I do want to say that a lot of people think that critical thinking means that people will come to agree with them. And I want to clarify that critical thinking will lead them to make their own opinion that may or may not agree with yours. At least they'll be forming an opinion of their own, which I would argue is an improvement. The amount of people that can think for themselves is insane. Example, my co-worker insists that the law is his way of knowing right from wrong. Anything illegal, he will not do and says makes you a bad person. I question him on his blind devotion to this ever-changing set of rules. Like if suddenly it's illegal to be gay, do you now hate the gays? etc. Basic gardening, food preservation, and cooking, and basics of sewing. When to use a instead of an. It's when there's an vowel, or when the consonant at the beginning of the word is silent and leads into a non-silent vowel. Honor, for example. Didn't know this. That's really useful. Thanks. Kind of tough, but a second language really helps out, especially for job applications. I'm lucky enough to speak 3 languages fluently and I can understand French fairly well, at least on a basic level. In all my 10 years of working, it's always been a major advantage. At the very least, it makes me look interesting worldly, but usually, it comes in handy at work. 2. I recently started learning Japanese for fun and now everyone at work thinks I'm intelligent. I love how mythical Japanese is in the West. I have read 2 chapters of a Japanese textbook and people are already saying that I'm super smart for learning Japanese lol. Don't tell anyone, but I haven't practiced Japanese since the lockdown in March. I basically only know hiragana and I'm slowly forgetting the letters already. But work still thinks I'm so geeky quirky intelligent that I can learn Japanese lol. Learn how to say no. Nah. Good job. Almost there, but replace the R with RO and then you got it. How to have compassion for other people's struggles. How to observe situations without being judgmental. How to have respect for yourself and value yourself as an individual. How to be kind to others. How to communicate by actively listening as well as speaking. How to admit when you're wrong and learn from your mistakes. How to plan for the future but live in the moment. Swimming. Basic home repair. Minor electrical. Minor plumbing. Basic automotive repair. Oil changes. Brakes. When in doubt, YouTube. For basic repairs. Not swimming if you're already in the thick of it. I had to repair my fuse box on my car last week. I know next to nothing about cars or how to work on them. But thanks to YouTube I fixed it successfully. Now I'm over here YouTubing how to change a tire and etc. That I was never taught. My grandpa is famous for fixing, in our family, just about anything that hasn't changed in the last 50 years. So our family always turns to him when they need help. After the fam has grown with more and more children, it's gotten very tedious for my nearing 80s grandpa, but he just does not have the heart to say no to anyone. My dad, in more recent years, has been utilizing YouTube so much and has been showing my grandpa, who hasn't really embraced tech, different videos. It's great to see them bond in this fashion since my dad is not a Mr. Fix-It. Self-reflection. You cannot grow as a person without it. Personal finance. You would be shocked at how many people get a crash course in APR when they max out their first credit card with very little liquid behinders. Where I live, we have a Gov retirement savings fund. The money you and your employer contribute is invested in a variety of investments. You'd be surprised at how many people think it's a bank account and freaked out when their funds dropped when the pandemic affected shares. So many people switched to more conservative plans after they had lost money. That's how you lose even more money. The amount of people who comment on Reddit about how they have been paying their student loan for 5 years and the principal hasn't gone down and they are shocked blows my mind. Yes, you deferred payment for 10 years and they were charging you interest the whole time. It said it in the contract you didn't read and they even gave you a choice to pay interest while in school or after and you chose after. To those who don't feel like taking their antibiotics. My brother had teeth pulled out, and his idiotic dentist didn't give him antibiotics. Neither did he get any himself. He ended up with a bacterial infection in his heart that went down to his leg and made it impossible to walk without intense pain. That was the better scenario. Worst case was that bacterial infection climbed up his cardiovascular system into his brain and given him a stroke. Let me know if you ever find out that a stroke was worth your laziness. Edit. No, he did not get a stroke. What he got was an inability to walk for a few months. He's fully recovered now. This was happening between the months of January and April earlier this year.